Go ahead.
On May 24th, 2012, the first commercially built vehicle to dock and carry cargo to the International Space Station was launched by SpaceX. In the history of spaceflight, only 4 entities have ever successfully launched a space capsule into orbit and brought it back to Earth: the United States, Russia, China, and SpaceX. I was 12 years old when NASA launched the final mission of the space shuttle and eventually ended the program. I was able to witness the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket when it launched from the Kennedy Space Center, and I also witnessed that same day the boosters of the rocket land themselves perfectly upright on the launch pad. Today, I would talk to you about a new system of partnerships that make up our space industry. A new system that prioritizes innovation, cooperation, and promotes the financial interests of both private companies and our nation as a whole. I want to talk about the history of how our system turned into what it is today, and end with a discussion of the future of space exploration. The latter part of the 20th century was dominated by the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, with this battle finding itself in space called the space race. For the next few years, both these countries will find themselves spending billions of dollars trying to make themselves the leader in space exploration. But without a doubt, the pinnacle of the space race was the United States landing a man on the moon, a feat that the Soviets couldn't do themselves. Now, if landing man on the moon was the pinnacle of the space race, well then the pinnacle of international cooperation would be the construction of the International Space Station. The ISS was a joint effort of the United States, Russia, and several other countries throughout its construction since 1998. But as the years went on, the momentum of space travel in the US had begun to wane. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, we lost the driving fear that drove us to the moon. The space shuttle program also proved to be pretty difficult too. I believe you've all heard of the Challenger disaster in 1986, with the teacher on board and that failed shortly after takeoff. There was also the Columbia disaster in 2003 that failed upon reentry. The United States wanted a more reliable and responsible approach to space travel, as well as a more financially desirable one as well. NASA then developed a long-term plan to rely on the private industry to help cover for costs, even if it meant temporarily we'd have to use the Russians. Now, since the existence of NASA, there was some partnership between the public and the private. As explained by Genta 2014 in the Journal of Acta Astronautica, he described the relationship as completely one-sided in favor of the government. He noted that NASA would contract out to private companies to build the hardware and equipment for missions, but these companies had very little autonomy and choice-making in the process. NASA would order components with exact specifications, preventing these companies from innovating and designing alternatives. And lastly, only government institutions like NASA had the capability and infrastructure to launch and design their own missions. But also, our government didn't have the money to continue spending on space programs. Space travel is very expensive. Our government wanted to find ways to leverage their cost and risk, and so public-private partnerships were heavily encouraged. The desire for innovation and technology, sharing cheaper project costs, sharing risk, and aligning both partners towards a common goal were all benefits of the government to work with the private industry. In addition, according to Harrison 2012 in the Journal of Nova Science, our government also wanted to encourage global competition as ways of spurring innovation and promoting commercial engagement in space. Across the globe, European, Russian, Chinese, Indian, and even Japanese companies were all vying with US firms to contract vehicles, spacecraft, and satellites for commercial customers. Private companies are entering the space industry because the government doesn't look at them as competitors, but as partners, seeing a long time developing market. By having the government as a partner, they have access to government assets such as data, experience, funding, and most importantly, basic infrastructure such as the space launch facilities. In addition, private companies realize that savings and profits come faster when the government is open with the commercial market, either by space tourism and entertainment, or by spin-off technologies that can be sold back to the public. For example, Elon Musk came up with the idea of SpaceX by wanting to build a greenhouse on Mars. When NASA wouldn't do it, he decided to create his own company. Space is an emerging market, and there's a new race to explore this. Since its beginning, our space industry has evolved into a system that benefits both private companies and our nation by allowing each other to work together to solve space problems. As quoted by Anderson in 2013 in the Journal of Space Policy, quote, "The NASA versus commercial space argument is a false dichotomy, and that only by working together can both sectors continue to push the boundaries of space travel and exploration," end quote. The new space market will be fertile ground for the ever-expanding growth of imaginative ideas. And it's for this reason I'm studying aerospace engineering to be part of this new frontier.
5 minutes and 46 seconds.
Awesome, Mason. That's very nice.
Patty on